Hi guys, before we get into today's video, I want to ask you a question, and that question is, if I did a classics readathon next month in August, would you join in? Because it is something that I've wanted to do for ages, and a few people have recently pointed out to me that that would be a good thing to do. So that is the plan, to do a classics readathon next month. So before I do like an official announcement video, I'd love to know if it's something you would be interested in. So let me know in the comments or on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that if that is something you would want to do. It would be really casual, not loads and loads of challenges, just something that you can set yourself, and I'll do more classics videos and maybe a live show on either Instagram Live or YouTube. I'm not sure which is the best right now, but it'll be that kind of thing. So quite casual, quite cool, but very interactive and hopefully very fun. So hopefully I will get to do that if you are interested in it. But back to today's video, and I am going to be talking today about the books that I am currently reading. I've done a few wrap-ups in the past few months, but I've got quite slow on the wrap-ups because my reading is so different that I've been trying to read over 2 months rather than doing one every month. And in doing so, and in my tastes changing so much that I can't really keep up with it, I have been reading lots of books but not finishing them, which means that my currently reading pile is huge at the moment. So I wanted to sit down and catch you up on everything I've been reading pretty much since April, May time. I've been reading lots and I've really been enjoying them, but I haven't been finishing these, and so for the rest of this month I kind of want to knuckle down and see how many of these I can actually finish reading. I'm going to start with the classics, and the book that I am mainly reading at the moment, the one I'm putting all of my time into, is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I have just started volume 2 of this. I've read a lot of Jane Austen's books now, but I've got this one and Emma to still read, and I'm trying to put it off because I don't want to finish them, but at the same time I also want to reread them all, so I do want to try and read this and Emma this summer, and I'm really enjoying this. I tried to read it a few years ago, but I didn't get very far in and I just didn't like it as much, but I'm pleased to report that I'm really enjoying it this time around, and I'm not really sure where the story is going either. Usually when I read classics I can kind of see the trajectory the book is going to take, but with this I just don't know what's going to happen, and I feel like I've got some ideas based on the other Jane Austen books I've read, but at the same time I'm just not sure, which is a really interesting way to read it. This is about two sisters called Eleanor and Marion who are very different. Eleanor is very prudent and very cautious and careful, and Marion is a very romantic character who is enthusiastic about everything and barrels her way through life. And what happens at the start of the book is that their father dies, and due to the inheritance laws and things like that at the time, they have to move out of the place they live because their older half-brother has inherited their property. So they have to go and they move to Devon, and this is where their new life starts for them. And so far the first volume has really been getting into that, exploring the characters and setting the story up, but I'm anticipating in the second and third volumes that a lot more is going to happen now and the plot is going to pick up in a bigger way. I've been loving reading the Penguin Cloth Brown classics recently. They are so beautiful and I find them really good to take around with me. They are really solid books, but they're also not that heavy, and I love the introduction and the notes to these too. I think they're brilliant, so I've definitely been reading more of these. And then the other classic that I have been reading recently is Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray, and I've wanted to read this for a while, but it is being made into an ITV adaptation which is airing in the next few months, and I really wanted to read the book before I watched that. And I'm currently 107 pages in and I'm on chapter 11, and I'm really enjoying it. I love the style and I love the tone. It's very humorous and the characters are almost too large for life, which I like. They are caricatures really of people you would have found in middle class society, and I love the way that he talks about that and how he comments on it, and it is quite over the top and melodramatic in part, but that is what makes it so good. But it is a chunky book and that is putting me off slightly, but I'm trying to banish my fear this summer of big books, and this is the first one I want to read. I'd also like to read Middlemarch, and I'd like to read Anna Karenina, so this is kind of my warm-up book. It takes a lot of brain power to read it, so I got 107 pages in and then I just kind of put it down for a day, and then I couldn't get that momentum going again, so I do need to dedicate more time to reading it. And I'd read 60 pages in a day or something, and I think I need to do that, and I really need to set out how I'm going to read it and set out a way that is going to be best to read it, and I can almost read it in not one go but in one chunk of time, because I think that is going to be the best way to read it. The main character in this is called Becky Sharp, and I love her. She is such an amazing heroine. She is really sneaky and very cunning, and I like how she's got her eye on men, and how she talks a lot about because her mother has died, she has to do that role of finding a husband herself, and she is very determined to do so. So far I would really recommend it, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to watching the adaptation of it. And there's also going to be an adult novel adaptation of this in kind of a modern day setting, written by Sarah Manning, and I downloaded a copy of that on NetGalley, so I think I'm going to read that after this too. And I'm really pleased to see a resurgence in its popularity, because it was very popular when it was published, but I feel like in the past few years it has been forgotten slightly, and I've never watched any adaptation of it, so I'm looking forward to reading the story and then exploring lots of other avenues to do with it. On to the YA now, and I'm reading 2 YA books at the moment, and the first one is Truly Madly Awkward by Beth Garrett. I recently read Super Awkward, which is the first book in this trilogy, and I'm going to be talking about that in my next wrap up because I loved it. I just love the characters in this so much. I think it's hilarious, and I read it and I have to pause it because I'm laughing so much that I can't read anymore. And I'm not really a huge funny book fan because I feel like my humour is very specific, but in this series Beth Garrett has really captured my sense of humour, and so it's so good to read. The main character is called Bella, and the first book follows her meeting this boy and getting into all kinds of awkward situations as she navigates the world of romance and friendship, and she just is the most embarrassing human being, but in a very endearing way, and I love her. It's really good to read alongside something that might be quite dark or heavy, because then you know that if you read a really hard chapter then you can always pick this up and you know that you'll get that light relief. And I love books like this. It isn't the most literary, but who cares, because I think that you need to read lots of different books. I know that I need to read lots of different books, and I know that if I say read a lot of classics or read a lot of literary fiction, then I get very bogged down in it, and I don't want to do that. I want to remind myself why I love reading so much, and this definitely does remind me of why I read books, and that is an amazing feeling. And then the other YA book that I'm currently reading is We Are Young by Kat Clark. I love Kat's books. I previously read Girlhood and I also read Undone, and both of them are outstanding, and this is definitely outstanding too. I am about 60 pages in, and it's one that I'm savouring, and I'm really enjoying doing that. I don't want to read it all in one go because I love her writing so much that I think it would be a shame to read it all in one sitting and then kind of forget about it. But this is about a girl called Evan, and the novel opens to her mother getting married, and you kind of hear that her stepbrother has not been at the wedding. He is said to be ill, but really that's just a cover because he didn't want to attend. And then you find out that there's been this car accident and her new stepbrother Lewis was involved, and they don't really know why, and the book is about Evan piecing together what happened that night and why he was involved with these people that she doesn't think that he ever knew. And I love it. I love how it's dark, but at the same time I love Kat's characters, and I love how I can read her books and I feel really good after I've read them because you can really sink your teeth into them, and this is definitely how I feel about We Are Young. So I'm going to have more to report after I finish reading it because I think that I am going to love the rest of it, and I really do think that Kat is one one of the most talented UK YA authors out there, and I would really recommend any of her books if you're looking for a good YA read. I've also been reading more children's books recently, and I'm really enjoying that. I'd love to write my own middle grade / children's books, so I'm trying to read more so I can kind of get the style and kind of figure out what I want to write about. And one that I've been really enjoying recently is The Stormkeeper's Island by Catherine Doyle. She was originally a YA author and one of my favourite YA authors. She wrote Vendetta, Inferno and Mafiosa, and I think they are amazing books and I reread them quite a lot. And this is her debut children's novel and it is so beautiful, so magical and really enchanting, and I love it. I've got just under halfway left to go, so I think it's going to be one that I'm going to read in the next week or so, and it is about a boy called Finn who goes to stay with his grandfather on this island off the coast of Ireland for the summer. The main part of the story is about the island of Arranmore and how magical things happen there. There's a lot to do with candles, and candles that when you light them they release memories and you can walk through the memories and see exactly what happened, which I love. I think it's a fantastic idea, and it's a perfect mix of magic with wonderful characters you can't help but fall in love with, and the setting is so beautiful as well, and it is going to be part of a series too, so I'm really looking forward to following the characters further and seeing what adventures they get up to. I think if you've got a young person in your life, then this is definitely a book that I think would make for great summer reading. And then the other children's book I'm reading, I'm hesitant to call a children's book because it is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and I feel like the Goblet of Fire kind of takes out of the realm of children's books, but I've been rereading the Harry Potter series recently. I read the first 3 as I was doing my exams because I thought that they were just the perfect thing to read when I was trying to think, and I could just reread something where I knew everything was going to happen but still really enjoy the books. Getting into the books again has been really great because I've been playing the Hogwarts Mystery phone game and I got a bit obsessed with it, so I wanted to reread the books, and I've got no shame in admitting that. So I wanted to reread the books and I've been really enjoying them. It's surprising how much I've forgotten about them. I really want to read The Order of the Phoenix. That is the one I'm really excited to read, and The Goblet of Fire has never been my favourite book, which is why I kind of put it down 192 pages in and didn't read the rest, but I would like to because I do want to read the other books in the series, and I'd like to watch the films again at some point. I'm really enjoying it. It's so good to reread them again, and I am really enjoying it. There's not a lot more I can say because I'm sure most of you watching this, if not all of you, have read Harry Potter at some point, so there's not really anything I can say that you probably don't already know. I've been reading lots of non-fiction recently, but I'm having a really difficult time finishing it because I'm finding that the books I'm reading aren't really heavy, but it's a lot of information to take in, and trying to make my way through them is a bit of a chore. It gets to that point and I don't want it to be, so I kind of put them on the back burner for a while, but I would like to pick them up again. And the first one I've been reading recently is The Diary of Virginia Woolf, and I recently invested in these editions which I got from Abe Books because I don't think that you can buy them anymore, and this is volume 1, which takes you from 1915 to 1919, so it's really interesting to explore the First World War era and how Virginia Woolf fitted into that. And I am 78 pages in, but it is such a slog because you're reading someone's diary and you're looking at their intimate life, but it's not an essay or a novel of hers that she has painstakingly edited to make it readable. It's just her diary entries that maybe she didn't ever intend for anybody to read. So whilst it's really fascinating, really interesting insight into her life, it is quite challenging in not so much the language, but just in terms of getting through it. And I just put it on the back burner and forgot about it, and I want to read all of them, but it's going to take me a long time to read them, I think, and I'm enjoying it and I would really recommend them, but I don't think that it is the easiest book I've ever read. There's just something about it that I can't quite get into, and that's perfectly okay. I'm fine with that. I'm going to continue reading it at my own pace, and I might finish it in 2 years' time, but I'm not really bothered. I'm just trying to enjoy it while I can. Another non-fiction book I've been reading, which I featured in my books I want to read in spring video, is The Wild Places by Robert Macfarlane, and I've been really enjoying this. I am 162 pages in. Actually, looking at all these books, that's pretty much how far I've got with all of these, which probably says a lot about me, but I've been really enjoying this. but I haven't found it as likeable as Landmarks, which is the one I previously read of his, and I'm finding that a lot of the settings in this are quite similar, and I'm not so interested in reading about mountains or lakes or the sea because I'm just not interested. I'm really interested in what is on my doorstep, and I like reading books like that. And so when I read Landmarks, I felt like some of the sections were more relevant to my life, and I'm struggling to find that with The Wild Places. So it is really good and really fascinating, and I adore the way that he writes. He is definitely my favourite nature writer, and I'm going to continue to read all of his books. But I don't think that The Wild Places has fully captured my imagination like Landmarks did. I've also been reading The Multi-Hyphen Method by Emma Gannon, which is a bit of a different non-fiction read for me. It is more of a business type book, and I've been really enjoying it, but I have been taking it slow because I do want to digest all of the information, and it is about looking at how we can build careers and how we can build multifaceted or multi-hyphen careers where you're not just doing one job, but your job includes lots of different jobs. It doesn't just include freelance, but it includes office jobs too, and how we can look at jobs differently and how we don't really need to fit into this job mould anymore. I love Emma Gannon. I love her podcast, Control Alt Delete. She's such an inspiration to me, so it's really interesting to look into her brain and see why she does what she does, and to see how she has done so well for herself and how we can all learn from that. So I really love it, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest. I am 84 pages in, and I just love the questions that she asks and the way that I think after I read each chapter, and how the chapters are set out, and how she's very open and honest about everything too. So if you are looking to start a new career, or if you're just looking to add multiple strings to your bow, then this is the book for you. And then the final book I want to talk to you about is Outsiders by Lyndall Gordon, and I am really enjoying this. It takes 5 women who wrote and connects them together. Most of them have a connection with Mary Wollstonecraft, and the book talks about them being outsiders and them being outside of society, what was normal at the time, and how that made them so amazing. So I've so far read the chapters on Mary Shelley, which I loved. I love finding out about her life, and I've also read the chapter on Emily Bronte, which I maybe didn't enjoy as much, but I'm also now reading a chapter on George Eliot, which I'm enjoying more, and it also includes Olive Schreiner and Virginia Woolf. And because I love writing so much, and because I love these writers so much, it's so great to read about them. But you have to remember that it is just one person's take on their biography as well, so that is definitely something I'm keeping in mind as I read it. I would really recommend this, especially if you love these authors. I definitely need to dive back into it. I read the first 2 chapters really quickly and then kind of put it down, so I do need to pick it back up again, and I've got about 140 or something pages left, so it won't be too much trouble. But I am definitely looking forward to feeding back to you after I've read the whole thing, and how once I've read the whole thing it might change my perception of certain chapters to connect all the 5 women together. I'm not really sure, but I am looking forward to reading the rest of it. So those were the books that I'm currently reading. There is an awful lot of them. I feel like I've just piled my plate really high, and now I'm feeling very overwhelmed by it. So I'm going to try in the next few weeks to read as many of them as I can, and hopefully talk about them in full in my next wrap up if I do finish them. So I'd love to know in the comments what you are currently reading, and if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them if you have read them. And I will see you guys soon. Happy reading!